The truth, you know, Mustang just has this little magnet mounted antenna. You can stick it outside, you plug it into your radio. This thing can go pretty far. Right now, I'm on the Kings County Repeater Association repeater, which I can actually, how far away is that? About 50 miles?
I'd say 50 miles, yeah.
Yeah, 50 miles on low power. I can go out no problem. That repeater will repeat all the way into Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, Long Island, tips of New Jersey like we're in now. And, you know, if you really like war dialing and you really like war driving, you can also do the same thing with repeater networks. You can go around and look for repeater networks. I mean, there have been times where I was just doing an antenna test, I'll key up the radio, and I'll wind up talking to some guy that I've never met and I'll never hear from again, all the way on the other side of the country, and just had a generally good conversation. But there are some assholes out there.
You're going to run into assholes everywhere. We also forgot to mention IRLP.
The Internet Radio Linking Project.
Yeah.
Because of how easy broadband is to get nowadays, what people will do is they'll hook their repeater network into a broadband connection, so it uses a voice over IP service to bridge the audio over the internet. So there are actual IRLP links from New York into Germany using the internet.
It's pretty much the same thing as Echolink, except Echolink, you're VNCing, pretty much you're connecting to a computer that's local to wherever you're transmitting from. With IRLP, you're actually bridging the whole repeater that you're connecting to. And with both of them, actually, I think with IRLP, I'm not sure. I know with Echolink, you don't have to be at home sitting through your computer. You can actually punch in the DTMF tones on your radio, and you can have the repeater connect you into the Echolink.
Yeah. And then there's also the naughtiness. See, typically these radios are designed so you can modify them to go out of frequency. Now, officially, you're not allowed to do this. Now,
well, you're allowed to modify the radio. You're not allowed to use it.
Unless it's an emergency.
Right.
But if you don't say anything, I won't say anything, so...
I think that's enough said. We don't put evidence on the show.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'll admit it. You know, I use, you know, and a typical FRS radio. The way I see it like this, you know, and a lot of the amateur radio guys that are going to see this are going to get pissed off. You can go fuck yourself. I don't care. Here's my justification.
Welcome to...
Shut up. I've got this little two-way radio. It can broadcast at, 10 or 20 times the power of an FRS radio you can go and get Best Buy at Radio Shack or whatever. If the shit hits the fan, Radio Shack, Best Buy, or your local retail electronics store is not going to be selling these $200 radios. They're going to be selling $8 FRS radios. So if we're ever in an emergency, I can go and hit the store, liquidate them of their entire supply of FRS radios and batteries, and I can still use this to communicate to everyone. Those two little radios aren't going to be able to communicate over long distances. I can. So that means I can act as a manual repeater, or I can even set up my radio as a repeater. And repeaters usually have protection, kind of like passwords, which are called PL tones. Certain radios can break those PL tones so you can get into repeaters that you shouldn't be on, like the police, fire, EMS. And as an FCC licensed operator, if you are caught interfering with any kind of emergency traffic or communications, you will be extremely fined, possibly sent to jail. So there is quite a bit of naughtiness you can do with these.
As for FRS, like he was saying, you know, a lot of people are against it, but I go four-wheel driving out in the Pine Barrens. Sometimes I can be like 50 miles from any road. My car breaks down out there. My cell phone has no signal. I'm not going to hit any repeaters locally with a little 5-watt radio. But you got Boy Scouts back in the woods all the time, and they tend to carry FRS or GRMS radios. So if I can bump up the power on my radio in an emergency situation on the FRS bands and get one of the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or whoever the hell's back in the woods, get them to relay a message to get me help back in the woods, then
so be it.
That makes it a legal situation.
Yep, so be it. So, I mean, it's some fun stuff. You can get into some trouble. I mean, you know, you can modify these things to talk to the drive-through operators at your local Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, and etc., etc. You can also modify them to talk on things that you shouldn't be talking on, like PA speakers and things of the such. But if you're operating under a license ID, you can get in some trouble for that.
Yeah.
So don't. I mean, these radios do have some mods you can do to them. They do have some hacks. They do have some naughtiness. And there are a couple of people, they're called jammers. They're pretty much just the script kiddies and the flametards that would come on IRC and just spam about nigger hate and, you know, Nazi propaganda, because just pissing people off is what they do. And unfortunately, you know, you don't know where these people are coming from, which is where Fox Huntington comes in, which is tracking where radio transmissions are coming from.
Believe it or not, if you're transmitting over emergency frequencies like the police, the fire, the ambulance, The radio actually does leave a fingerprint that they can trace. It
Yeah.
might take them a little while.
We'll get into that in another segment,
Yeah.
though, because fox hunting is also something that they do in field day. They'll go and take a small little transmitter, they'll hide it someplace, and it'll make a little beep every once in a while, and you have to take your equipment with directional antennas and such, and you have to go find them. So that's something else hopefully we'll get into. Hopefully we'll get into radio BBS. I'd really like to contact the International Space Station. We'll most likely do some antenna designs for amateur radio, because we will be finishing up with the Wi-Fi stuff soon. So I mean, I think it's got some pretty cool stuff. There's just so much to cover. I think we should just end it here.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any interest, hit us on the show notes or on IRC. Ask us questions. We'll be more than likely around on IRC to answer anything at all.
And if you have any questions we can't cover, there's a phone number. I don't have it right now, but you can contact the
ARRL.
ARRL. Yeah, they have I think it's an 800 number that you can contact them and ask them any questions that you can't get covered by local people.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of amateur radio operators in BSOD. We have Ophidian, Dave, someone. I think we got at least 5. And Acemon and Ugster are showing a real big interest in getting their license. Even my girlfriend's getting her license. I mean, having an amateur radio license in itself is a sign of respect when it comes to police, fire, and EMS. So, if you're involved in the amateur radio emergency services and have an ARES card, and you have an amateur radio license, you can probably get away with, getting away from a couple of speeding tickets.
Yeah, I know. I'm a local. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I'm a local ARES RACES member, and we have a nuclear power plant not too far from where I live, and we're pretty much the responders. We've had training in case there's an emergency down there. And unlike most of the other people that can't get back into my town if there's some kind of disaster, I can cross the line. All I have to do is show them my card, and I can get back into town, get my family out of there, help the neighbors, whatever, help evacuate it. So there's some benefits to volunteering to these different services too.
And just like BSOD, BSOD is a community of people that want to help people. Amateur radio is in the same way. You have a community of people that want to make a better impact on the community by setting up emergency communications and just generally having a good time. I mean, on BSOD IRC, we say a lot of really, really messed up stuff to each other, and we can get really zany and really wacky. But whenever someone has a problem or comes in the channel, everyone's always willing to help because that's just the kind of people we are. Every once in a while, you have a douchebag come in and they start some shit, and we all gang up on them and they kick our ass. So, on my local repeater, we have a frequency jammer, and we're pretty much hunting him down, and we're taking vigilante justice on his ass.
The Shoutcast streams that are of amateur radio repeaters, are they legal?
You are allowed to rebroadcast amateur radio over the internet, no problem. That's it.
So maybe in the show notes we can post some links to some streams so you can listen in if you're interested and see what it's all about.
You know who we really have to whore out? Amateur Logic.
Yeah, very, very good show.
Those are some great guys. They're all amateur radio operators. They're not as hardcore when it comes to tech with BSOD, but they're way more hardcore with amateur radio than we're going to get on the show. So if you really want to go and check out some of the stuff that amateur radio is all about, Amateur Logic, I'll put a link on the screen, and I'll put some show notes. I've actually done a segment for those guys. They're some pretty cool guys. I'm hoping one of these days I can actually get some equipment to actually talk to them over the air. It'd be quite an honor.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're running out of time, so we're going to just shut up and leave all your questions and comments for the IRC and show notes.